Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the Zion Williamson injury. Now, many of you basketball fans out there, sports fans, may have heard that recently Zion Williamson has injured his finger. It's fractured, and he's going to be out indefinitely. He's a basketball player, plays on the New Orleans Pelicans. Obviously, a force to be reckoned with. He's very good sized player. He's like 6'7", 284 pounds. He's like even though he's not as tall, as like people that are like Shaquille O'Neal, who's like 7 foot or 7 foot one. He's definitely a powerhouse, and he's somebody. I mean, obviously has played a role in an integral role in whatever success the New Orleans Pelicans have this season. It's probably going to really impact their playoff hopes at this time. And thing I want to get at is I want to talk about some natal placements and transits in his chart that might be tied into this. Now, the thing about as far as Zion Williamson goes, looking at his chart, I just want to say, first thing off, he is a Sun in Cancer, as many of you may know. His Moon is in Virgo, and he has an Aries ascendant. I was a little bit surprised that his chart was available online. A lot of times, these sports figures that have just been in the league, for not very long, are not available online. So, the thing about him is that obviously the Sun in Cancer, he obviously is focused, on doing things in a very dedicated and devoted manner and tenacious manner. And that Moon in Virgo is really, the way that blends in, probably very strong work ethic, and that dedication, that Sun in Cancer dedicated, devoted energy. A lot of that likely goes into his work, which is playing basketball. Aries is his ascendant again, and that Aries can be connected with sports, I would say competition as well. But the fact that his work is done, that work is done with all that aggression, I would say, a lot of vitality and energy, a lot of assertiveness. I'm sure he commands the ball in many instances, and he is and done with, probably, I'm sure, with a lot of courage and fortitude, since his ascendant is Aries. His Sun in Cancer squares his Aries ascendant. So obviously, I mean, that energy being adversarial, probably might even feel that he's a little bit misconstrued or misunderstood by others, because the Cancer Sun is obviously the true self. The Sun is the true character, the true basic character, true self, is probably a lot more nurturing, a lot more introverted, and sympathetic than his Aries rising. Shows Aries rising on the surface, superficially, may not be overly sympathetic. They might seem a little colder to people on the surface on average, and they're not. They might even appear unsympathetic at times, and a lot more. I'm sure he's a lot more aggressive and assertive, on the surface, and forceful than his 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 Cancer Sun is showing people outwardly. Or I should say, more assertive, aggressive, and forceful outwardly than he truly actually is, which is represented, of course, by his Cancer Sun sign. But the thing is, I noticed one thing that stands out, to some degree, is that his transit Mercury is not far from his natal Jupiter. Transit Mercury is in Gemini right now. And even though the transit Mercury in Gemini is not conjunct by the transit orb allowed, it's not conjunct his natal Jupiter in Gemini. I don't think we could say definitively that a planet doesn't feel a vibration, even if it's 5 or 6 degrees away from another in transit, as far as transit to natal positions go. And the thing about this is, Jupiter, the fact that the transit Mercury is conjoining his natal Jupiter, in some cases, I would say that can manifest in exacerbating, enlarging issue with the finger, and enlarge issues with the finger, because Mercury could be connected with the hands, the fingers. Jupiter in Gemini by itself can sometimes enlarge or exacerbate some issues that can be connected, with the nerves, the hands, thighs, the arms, shoulders. Uh, so those are, could be issues like the carpal tunnel. But he did have a fractured finger, and he also has Saturn conjunct his Jupiter in Gemini. Now, Saturn is in Taurus, but that can still add difficulty to any Jupiter in Gemini issues that he may have. Another thing I noticed too, I thought was on an interesting note, is that he does have his Mercury retrograde in his chart, and it was stated he is left-handed. Very, it's unusual. So there's, in Mercury, of course, is associated with the hands. And the thing is, looking at his chart as well, he's also going through his Mars return in Cancer. At this time, the transit Mars appears to be in his third house. The third house does correspond with the hands, the fingers, and Mars can be associated with physical injury. And I don't know if there's going to be any surgery or not on this, but I found what was interesting is that his transit Pluto is not far from his natal south node in Capricorn. So there may be, when the south node is involved in the transit and the conjunction, sometimes it can, I would say, affect that planet that's contacting it adversely, or it could also indicate that if the surgery is taking place when the transit of, in this case, Pluto being connected with surgery, when it makes the separating orb conjunction orb from it, the surgery or the healing process could be complete. Now, I don't know if he's going to have surgery on this or not. There's something I'm trying to look at in his chart wheel. Now, currently Pluto is at like 26, around 26 degrees Capricorn, 47 minutes of arc. His natal south node is at 25 degrees Capricorn. So if Pluto does continue to go retrograde to the point when it hits like that 25 degrees Capricorn, then it will be passing the south node, and if a surgical procedure takes place, that could be an indicator that either the surgery has been completed and or it could be the relief from the surgery. Is that it could be that feeling of and some alleviation from maybe some pain from the surgery. Another thing I noticed too, interestingly enough, conversely, he actually has transit south node conjunct his natal Pluto in the 8th house of surgery. Pluto in Sagittarius, again, Pluto can be connected with surgery, but also regeneration, rebirth, and it's in the sign of sports, Sagittarius, in the 8th house of surgery, regeneration, and rebirth. And the south node, maybe when the transit of the south node passes his natal Pluto, that will be a time when maybe the healing will take place if a surgical procedure were to take place. But remember, Pluto is also rebirth and regeneration, so that could just reflect the rehab process that's going to be taking place. And so no matter how you look at him, it's obviously going to be, at the very least, a fairly extensive rehab process and procedure that he's going to have to go through. And with Aries rising, I'm sure he has much greater powers of recuperation than the typical Sun in Cancer. He does have a lot of Cancerian energy in his chart, and he has it in the 4th house. So he has, like the Sun in Cancer the Cancerian energy is in the natural house, because the 4th house in astrology does correspond with the zodiac sign Cancer. So I'm just trying to see if there's anything else in this chart that may indicate something connected with this surgery that's taking place for him. But there's really not too much else to look at. But I'm noticing another thing though too, is that he does have, coming up, the transit Sun in Taurus is closing in on his natal Saturn in Taurus, and when That happens in around, the exact conjunction around 10 days or so. There can be some limitations with energy and vitality that he might have to contend with. It might be powers of endurance may not be quite as there for whatever reason. Another thing I did, well, now I'm looking, another thing I did notice is that he does have, um, what I wanted to say, actually, I'm going to go off on a Gemini new tangent. I thought it was interesting is that a prominent person in the New Orleans Hornets, I'm sorry, New Orleans Pelicans, I believe it is, stated that he thought that the referees were being biased against Zion Williamson, that he was basically getting mauled. And I thought it was interesting is that, and there's been comparisons to him and Shaquille O'Neal in terms of not getting, the fair treatment by the referees. It's interesting because Zion Williamson has an Aries ascendant. It puts Libra on the descendant, of course. And according to Astro.com, Shaquille O'Neal also has an Aries ascendant, which puts Libra on the descendant with him as well. And even though I think actually Shaquille O'Neal's ascendant may actually ostensibly be Taurus, but it's still listed as Aries. So for argument's sake, we'll go with Aries. And the commonality they have with this Libra on the 7th house cusp, well, it tells me that, the referee, Libra is connected with officials and judges, referees, and it's on the 7th house cusp of open adversaries. So it's really, and of course that's opposing the Aries ascendant in this case, and in Shaquille O'Neal's case. Now, what's funny is, though, there is some information out there that may contradict what this prominent person in the New Orleans Pelicans organization stated about Zion Williamson getting unfair treatment, because from what I read anyway, there was a report, I think it was on ESPN.com, that Zion Williamson is actually second in the league in free throw attempts behind the Greek Freak, who of course plays for the Milwaukee Bucks. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, well, and the thing too is, going back to, the fact that transit Mars right now is at 8 degrees Cancer. His natal Mercury is at 14 degrees Cancer, almost 15. But even though the transit is not conjunct, as far as transit orbs allowed, the thing about this is, like I stated before, not to be overly redundant with this, but I don't think we could say definitively that one planet doesn't feel vibration from another necessarily if it's like 7 degrees away, 5, 6, 7 degrees away. Transit Mars right now again is at like 8 degrees, I think almost 9 degrees Cancer. And if I'm looking at this right, and based on, if that's the case, I don't know if I'm reading this or I'm trying to see what the Mars and Cancer placement is, but anyway, it's not that far really from his natal Mercury. And the thing about this is Mars can be connected with physical injuries. Mercury is connected with the hands, the fingers, because being does that. That's what the planet corresponds with in astrology. His Mercury is also the ruler of his 3rd house, and the 3rd house, the houses in astrology do correspond and correlate with different body parts. The 3rd house in astrology is connected with the arms, shoulders, hands, fingers. So and he also has the moon in Virgo. It's interestingly enough, it's in conjunct. Makes an inconjunct aspect to his Aries ascendant from the 6th house. So that can be an issue for health indicators that could be something Virgo related, that might cause some emotional distress. The fact that it's the moon in Virgo, it could be something with the spleen, the pancreas, something with the intestines. Anything that could be related to Virgo. And the thing is that, and also the fact that the moon by itself in conjunct the ascendant can give some issues with water retention or digestive issues, and having all that Cancerian energy, that is something that he needs to be careful of. Anyway, as far as it could be issues like with the stomach or digestive issues as well. He does have, again, he's got 4 planets in the zodiac sign Cancer, including his sun sign, which can be connected with the physical, have a connection with the physical body. And he also has Mars in Cancer. And it's also important to remember, having like Mars in Cancer, it's very, one really needs to have an aversion to eating if really, very emotionally upset as there can be, if he's feeling, angry about something, it's something where you really, it's probably not advisable to eat, because the anger might cause issues with digesting the food, because Mars is connected with anger, acrimonious energy. The zodiac sign Cancer, of course, is associated with food. And he is going through his Mars return, so it's not surprising that he did have an injury at this time. And the fact that it's in the Mars return in Cancer, I would say, I know he's likely never going to see this video, but the thing about it is, there is susceptibility and propensity to injury to the chest, the breast, the stomach area when you have Mars in Cancer. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.